Evening, happy Monday the 11th. My name is Sir Pinch. Welcome to the lockdown session. This is lockdown session number 7 already. Can't believe the time, the weeks have rolled by as quickly as they have. But as I said, thanks so much for joining me. Today is a distinct, a special and different sort of show. There's going to be a long interview that I've got with an incredible doctor stroke MC, the only one of his kind, coming up very, very shortly, as well as something just so special. I just want you to stay tuned in to the very end. We've got a few more people tuning in, locked in, 14 people watching, got a thumbs up. So remember, as ever, like if you comment during the show, I'm going to try and integrate your comments and your observations. Any questions that you have after this thoroughly in-depth interview that I have with Dr. Chima, please post them in the comments, and we'll have a bit of a discussion about it. But unless your head's been buried in the sand for the past week, then you'll know that today, this evening's broadcast is going to be dedicated to a very special musician, a special energy, special artist, and that is Brother Ty, man, the dopest MCs that this country has ever produced. So wherever you are, if you're at home, if you're watching this on your phone, man, clap it up for my brother Ty. That's what's good. I'm going to refrain from making the sort of trite and quick observations that attempting to make, because I'm obviously so full of both anger and sadness that, you know, I want to measure the sort of responses I make, given a bit more time to process everything that's happened. But I think, if you're like me, lots of people are thinking, not just about Ty, but about the entire situation. How could this be allowed to happen? How can they get away with this? There's a sense of injustice that surrounds the whole thing. I've been aware of how many people we've lost as a community of musicians and artists around the world, and so many friends. We're talking about Lee Konitz, you know, somebody who I had a personal interaction with, an incredible musician. Ellis Marsalis, even though I never met him, I felt like I knew him my whole life, given my interaction with his sons. Tony Allen, you know, a massive loss, and I was lucky enough to meet and play with him. And many friends that I have suffering from cancer at the moment. Some people are being lost to these diseases that may in ordinary times be more curable. So this is a really difficult time for us all to process. I'd advise us to take time and to reflect, to refrain from quick knee-jerk sort of statements and reactions. But as a result of this huge impact of feeling the loss of Ty, I feel that something needs to change, or something will change within me personally. I'm going to need a lot more time to reflect on how specifically to honor his legacy, you know, but knowing that he was somebody who I felt as a big brother, a peer, just watching over me at different junctures in my life, somebody who's protective, always giving me advice, and just super inspiring. I feel like I need to honor that legacy, and it's going to take me more than just one Facebook post and so forth to do that. But you know, if you knew him and you want to leave your comments in this blog, please do. If there are other suggestions and other bits of music and ways that we can share that legacy, then, you know, we'll get into that. But stay tuned to the end of the show, because I have a very special tune that I want to play in dedication to Ty that only a few people have heard. So if you want to hear a completely exclusive banger, like something from 2005 that for some reason I didn't release, I feel that Ty is telling me now, "What are you doing, bruv? Release the music." So I'm going to be dropping some gems very, very soon later on in the show. Let me know again if there's sound issues. I often have them throughout this podcast. So let me know in the comments page if you can hear me accurately. It's always good to see some familiar faces, man. Shannon, what up, my brother? We didn't even talk that much at school, but it's good to see you here in the group. I think we've got some other people, some other friends. Yeah, man, 14 people watching. So before we even get into the nitty-gritty of the interview, I'm going to play some music. So many of these pieces that I've started to develop during the lockdown period are completely new. They haven't got titles yet. They've just come to me as I've been immured in my room. So this next piece is this next piece. I'm going to play a few songs and then see where it takes us. Tell a friend that this is happening. Spread the love. What up, Karis? Yes, Julie. All my peoples. So many of us new time personally now. This is a special show. Dedication. We'll be feeling this energy long before, long after. So, let's share it. Is it loud enough? Here we go. Wherever you are, wherever you tune into this, man, I hope you're feeling this energy. Check. Let's go. Microphone issues. One, two. You tune new saxophone. Some more random applause. Interview with my bro Chima Anya, an alumni, long friend of jam sessions and things that I've been doing over the years, some of which Ty was also a part of, be there the Flyover Show, be there the Live Box, things that a lot of my homies and homettes have helped me through over the years. So this interview is particularly resonant and important, and you know, because we're in this pandemic crisis, we really do have a crisis of like trust, not knowing what on earth the government's playing out, how much we can believe them, which is clearly not at all. And we need authentic voices. So I chose to approach the only MC I know, and MC itself implies a level of authenticity if you're really about it, in my opinion. I hope you can still hear me. Let me know if the sound's really quiet or if it's adequate. But yeah, there's a level of authenticity that MCs speak with that not every doctor will have. And there's a level of knowledge that doctors obviously have to have that rappers just rapping don't. So without any further ramblage, I'm going to play this interview, a wide-ranging discussion about everything from the impact of race and DNA in these fatalities and the whole context of the pandemic. Please enjoy, and I'll be back, as I said, with a very special tribute, not just to Ty, but the entire world from which we sprung. So it's worth listening right through to the end. Right now, I'm going to hand you over to me and Chima.
Is that the SM7B, bro?
1 2 1 2. This is the Shaw mic, indeed.
Man's going in, cuz I'm thinking of getting one myself, but I don't know if I'm just, you know, when you just like, instead of actually achieving something, you just decide to spend money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and feel
right. I've done it. I've bought it, so therefore, technically, I can do it at some point in the future and all that. For those who don't know, and you know, tuning in to the live stream. Not so live stream. This interview will actually go out a few days after our chat. But you have the interesting vantage point of both being an MC, an artist, and a GP, fully qualified doctor. What is that like? What's it, from that vantage point, especially in this time of crisis, where I suspect your artistic inclinations are just to like say everything that you see or hear or express it artistically, versus being in this professional environment where there's chaos and crisis. What's it like? Broad question to start with, but
yeah. Now I'm feeling a bit calm, a bit more collected, a bit more grateful to be able to see the situation from multiple angles. If you asked me, a month ago, I would have told you, I was like, it was the most panic-inducing time of my life. Right. I think I actually had coronavirus as well, wow. And seeing this was at the time pre-lockdown.
That would mean you weren't tested. You don't know for sure if it happened or suspect.
No, so my main symptoms were really at the beginning. So I'm saying like March, April times. I did actually subsequently get tested only a few weeks ago, but that's probably a bit late. And I mean, I don't know how much you know about the testing. The testing is dreadful, it's got a very high false negative rate. It's not reliable. And also if you do the wrong test at the wrong time of the illness, it's not going to give you any information. You know what I'm saying? So, no, I wasn't tested. I don't have it. I don't have like that kind of confirmation. But in terms of my constellation of symptoms that I had, I've never had anything like that in my life before. Do you see what I'm saying? And it ticks a lot of the boxes for what we're calling, COVID-19.
And it's not comparable to a flu or just a chest infection?
Well, okay, so in my experience, I think I had flu maybe when I was like 9. And I guess in the way that it would be comparable is, yes, extreme fatigue, yes, cough. I don't remember. Obviously I was 9, so I can't really remember much. Probably older than that actually, because it was when I was in Oxford. Shortness of breath was a real thing that I had, that I'm not sure with the flu is that big. If we're just talking about describing the symptoms of COVID, and obviously everyone is different. Some people just lose their smell, lose their taste. Right. Some people have abdominal symptoms. Some people have no symptoms. But just in terms for me, it was like the cough. The cough was like relentless, dry, like this real incessant cough. Right. That I do think it does feel quite different from the flu, sure. But I want to preface everything by just saying this is me and my opinion, and anyone that's trying to tell you anything definite giveaway,
right.
is trying to sell you something. I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. I'm just here to talk about things from a fairly neutral perspective. You know what I mean?
Being great segue, because where I was going to go next is really like, we're really struggling for veracity, for like truthful, reliable information in this time. And you implied in my first question, the hip hop community will go to what quote unquote others might call conspiracy theories immediately, or likely to trust this information because the mainstream information is patently so unreliable, untrustworthy. So how can we, two questions really, what are the kind of major misconceptions you'd want to debunk, and how can we navigate this new landscape where the mainstream science is clearly lying to us? We can get into that in a bit more detail, you know.
So I guess the to answer the second question, the only way you can really know the truth is by being open-minded to all sides of the argument and developing your own skills in terms of appraising what someone is saying to you, weighing up all the factors, is it a credible source? Do they have a vested interest? What are their conflicting interests, etc. Why are they saying this? Why are they saying? And then making your own decision, about how you feel about the situation. You can't just go to one person and accept what they're saying. Oh yeah, that's the whole story. That's not the whole story. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's that side of things. I can't remember what the first part of the question was. What was it again? I know where it was. Yeah. It was, what misconceptions do you want to lay to rest? Yeah. And that's a great question, because you know what's really interesting? I see, from my point of view, misconceptions on both sides. There's two narratives that are coming out now, I feel, main narratives. One is end the lockdown because the economy is suffering, right, and more people are going to die. Yeah. And then there's the other side where people are so scared of this disease now that they don't ever want the lockdown to end, and they never want to leave their house, and they're, and I feel like
both seem quite extreme positions, right?
Well, exactly. But it's interesting because, again, that comes down to the media. I was listening to an academic today talk, and he said whenever he was given media, he's in touch with Fox and CNN. They're not interested in his views if they're middle of the road.
Right.
They want one extreme.
Yeah.
They'll either interview him if he's saying it's all a hoax, everyone go back to work, or if you say no, everyone, you need to stay in your house or you're all gonna die. And the truth is it's not as black and white is that, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's as everything in life.
But then
there's everything in life.
This is the part that makes it so difficult to navigate, because we have clickbait media where it's all about algorithms making stuff that's controversial fly up in the ratings. Yeah. Versus a mainstream media that wants to shy away from obvious flaws. I watched, even before I heard the news of our brother, that we'll go into that in a bit. With Ty's passing, but even before I heard that news, I had a lump in my throat watching the news where it's like they've allowed PPE to go 10 years out of date, their stockpiles, right? And I'm like watching it, like, this is obviously a news story. They're not just hyping it up for the sake of clicks. This is something we should be incensed about, surely. And I'm imagining that you're seeing things on the ground that are making you like, how is this allowed? How is this possible?
I think we know how it's possible, man. Like, we got to a point where people who are in charge of things, they have no real competency. This is my theory.
Sure.
The Secretary of State for Health has never had a job in healthcare. Doesn't know anything about healthcare. He's just a top piece. And then the people who get into positions of power, they're not on the front line. They don't know about the real issues that we're dealing with day to day, seeing patients. Do you know what I'm saying? And they just like towing party lines so that they get proceeding, better jobs. Again,
remove very press release led. 100,000 tests, 200,000 tests.
There you go, bro.
It's
politics. It's politics and the media. That's what I blame. Yes, they fucked up. I can swear, right?
Yeah,
they fucked up.
YouTube.
Yeah, they fucked up with PPE. I don't think there's any way that they can hide from that, And it's not controversial, me as a doctor saying that. Every doctor you speak to will tell you the same thing. Like, and if you don't believe that that's why I'm saying, like, listen to every point of view. Listen to the politicians lying about. Yeah, lying about like them sorting it out. They didn't sort it out. They haven't sorted it out. They know they'll lose votes because they didn't sort it out, and they have to. But that's the issue that you have when you're led by popularity as opposed to competency.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean,
they fucked up PPE, and that is one of the biggest things that that you're 100% right. I think they fucked up on, and they are continuing to fuck up on. Do you know what I'm saying?
As I'm asking and thinking of the next question too, like, I'm wondering, swearing is all good and like ranting and talking up piece is exactly what I want, because I feel there's a hip hop sensibility, if you like, that needs to speak into this crisis and one of our experience. But at the same time, I wonder, because of things that I also got told during general elections as a BBC employee, nurses I know, public servants I know, how much purdah is an issue? Like, how much are you curtailed in the things that you can speak about? You know, is it a thing?
You use this word in your message to me, and I was like, this word is not something I come across.
Per what now?
I had to Google it real quick, and I was like, pre-election things you can talk about. I was like, I like, honestly, from my point of view, I work at a very progressive environment, right? So, different ideas are encouraged. You know what I'm saying? So
tell us a bit more about that as well, like just specifically how you, in your day-to-day, have been interfacing what your work environment's like, if that's all right.
Well, the thing is, right, with general practice, the way it is now, to be honest, we're not frontline. Right. I don't know if you know about what's happened with general practice. They've sort of split it into hot sites, which are COVID sites, suspected COVID, and then cold sites, where there's like a very small chance that someone might have COVID. And pretty much face-to-face is gone. Yeah. It's all on the phone. Anything non-urgent has been cancelled, basically. So, so that's part of the arguments for opening lockdown is because people are going to start dying of cancer and, all their treatment, their problems that aren't getting treatment at the moment. So me personally, I'm not on the front line at the moment in terms of seeing COVID patients who are sick. But what's interesting for me is that I do know that, and if you look at this, for example, the Nightingale Hospital, they had 50, 60 patients. They're thinking of winding it down. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and at the practice, we've not had many patients die. Do you see what I'm saying?
Does this mean that they're just not admitting them? What's going on?
No, I think it means that lockdown, I feel has probably affected the spread, definitely. Right. But also the stories that we can't trust anything we heard from China. We have no idea what happened in China. Let's be honest.
Sounding like Donald Trump, kind of like that. But I hear you. Don't. There's still a war.
No. Like, I'm not trying to sound like this is the thing. Like,
you don't know what those guys are capable of.
You don't think China
I think
didn't give us the full story?
I definitely think they'd misrepresent fatalities. But I also think that they could impose a sort of draconian lockdown measures that would bring fatalities down quite rapidly that we couldn't. And I think has actually been fairly transparent after January. I think all their lies and deceit happened in
think so?
November. I'm not an expert, but my assessment is they tried to underplay it. They tried to contain it with a wall of silence and realised too late that they couldn't do that, and then imposed quite incredibly strict lockdown measures in the middle of January. But there were still, 7,000 casualties or altogether infections that they could have prevented. So I think they learnt the lesson that ignorance isn't bliss. And I think that's what it seems to me, and this could segue again into another conspiracy theory, if you like, is that Western exceptionalism, and I'll come out and call it what I think it is, whiteness, which isn't anything really to do with white skin, in as much as just people with white skin might perpetuate it more, but it's the exceptional belief that we don't have to do what those other countries do because we're plucky and we're determined. We don't have to invest in our NHS like that scrappy anti-British Jeremy Corbyn wants us to do, those unpatriotic types. And I think that you rally things like banging pots and pans and tins on a Thursday evening around an idea of patriotism as opposed to substantively looking at a problem and being like, okay, China might lie, but how have they dealt with the problem? Surely they don't want their people to die. Singapore has dealt with it. Germany, even the cases are rising there for the first time in weeks, are dealing with it a lot better than we have.
Yeah, I mean, I take what you're saying, and I was before the official government guidelines came out,
Yeah.
I was telling people, look, guys, stay in your house. You know what I'm saying?
Long before.
Because at that point, at that point, we didn't know. We didn't have the data we have now. The most powerful thing you can have is the retrospectoscope, bro.
Right,
do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at that point, no, you're right. And if it was, I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist, although they seem to have got it completely wrong. That's
Yeah.
another.
Heard
That's
what
another
now?
madness.
Herd immunity.
But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, you're right. We can criticize the response of PPE. We can criticize how slow they were to lock down, and then still like the soft lockdown, if you will. But I do think that. But what I would add that as a caveat to say is the whole point of the lockdown was not to overwhelm the medical services.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of a lockdown.
Absolutely.
It's not to eradicate the disease, stop anyone getting the disease.
Yeah, you do tracing and tracking for that. So this is just about slowing down the spread.
Exactly. So and to be fair, it got very close. That first week, it was, I think, Watford ran out of oxygen or something like that. But apart from that, the hospitals have not been overwhelmed.
So what we're saying is, this is a sort of, I mean, again, let me just be extremist and you temper me in your response. But isn't this just slow genocide, slow eugenics? If we're just allowing people to die and we're not ramping up the tracing and testing like we say that we're going to, and we're just admitting by everyone's acknowledgement in the mainstream and in the Tory party, it could be a second wave after this relaxing of measures maybe on Monday. Aren't we just saying we don't want to stop the disease, as you've almost implied in your first thing? We just want to delay its onset.
We want to stop the disease. Whether or not we can stop the disease we have to live in the real world. We want to stop the disease. And I'm not allying myself with the Tories
Dominic
here.
Cummings.
Please don't do that. Don't do that, bro.
Chima turned Tory, yo.
This is what I wanted. This is what I wanted, because I knew you would challenge me, and I know that the way I'm thinking about and how I'm seeing this is controversial to a certain extent, 100%. We're not saying that if we could eradicate, the only way you can eradicate the disease, let's be honest, is if you have a vaccine.
Right.
Even the contact tracing,
Fact.
South Korea, even them, which we all hold as the highest level,
They haven't eradicated.
at one point, I was seeing reports that, look, it's getting out of hand. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think if we were living in the real world, it's not genocide. Although we can get to the differences in how it affects black people, as I'm sure you probably want to talk about. But we have to be realistic, as in we can't. So we have to do the best thing, which is slow it down. And what we should do better is shield the vulnerable, which every single society has failed in, mostly. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? In terms of shielding the and we have to remember, people have
like an international ranking table of who's failed most spectacularly in terms of protecting the vulnerable. Yeah. It goes US, UK. It can't be a mere coincidence that they've been the most ardent countries for free market capitalism, deregulation.
Oh, I agree. I agree on this. I agree on. You're right.
Underfund
100%.
the NHS, and it's all about bottom 100%. Line. This is what happens.
You're right. I won't disagree with that. You're right. 100%. That is the problem. Capitalism. Right. You know what I mean? 100%.
Right. I mean, so yeah, you insinuated there the big talking point that's popped up every couple of weeks, but seems to have reared its head a lot in the news of the past couple of days, that BAME casualties from COVID-19 are disproportionate. Why are black people dying in such large numbers? And I saw the first story yesterday on Channel 4 News that attempted to say, this isn't just because of socio-economic factors. This isn't, once we've adjusted modelling to include frontline workers and housing and, underlying health issues, then maybe there's something else at play. And I'm still of the conviction that being black in a racist society is a killer. I don't think it is anything to do with genes or DNA. I don't think the virus is racist. I think it's society that's racist. But tell me about, I guess, the pathology of COVID, and if there is any merit in that thing that black people are more susceptible than others, Or why are we dying in more numbers, do you think?
Yeah. I can't say for sure. No one can say for sure. You know what I mean? I looked into this a lot because it's something that really surprised me, and I really had to challenge my own thoughts about this, right? And I find it helpful to look at it from the paradigm of diseases.
Right.
Because I went back to this idea that race is socially constructed, right? And I don't know if it's what I found more helpful for me to think about it in terms of, because obviously I agree with you, being black is a killer, 100%. In a racist society, it's a killer. Sure. I agree with that. However, in my line of work, I also see, for example, there is without a doubt a higher level of certain diseases in certain, let's not call it race, because race is a racially, it's a charged word nowadays.
But communities.
Let's call it, sorry?
There's communities, right? Yeah, they're not
racist. In certain, let's call them genetic populations.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And there is some scientists that will say that basically how we are, and this makes to me on a science level, how we are, how we develop is a result of our environment, okay? So all across in different geographies, you have different environments. So the best simple example I can give of this is malaria in Africa, right?
Yep.
Having the sickle cell trait is protective in some way.
Right. Against
exactly. So over the years, people who are in that area will then develop, that because they have a survival advantage. They will then have sickle cell trait, which means sickle cell disease more runs in that.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'd say I hear you. That's absolutely true scientifically. But then I was really fascinated by Angela Saini's book Superior, The History of Race Science, where she looks at how these ideas are resurgent now. These old, forgotten eugenics ideas about racial difference that were debunked by the likes of Franz Boas and stuff in the 50s is now resurgent because people don't talk about races. They talk about genetic populations, specifically that term. And it can be a way to sort of mask uglier beliefs. Because if you just say there's a genetic disposition for black people to die, you don't have to examine the reasons why that genetic disposition is there. You can just pass it off as well. You don't have to examine the inequality that's produced.
Yeah, I don't agree with that though.
Here's one for you. Like, just to think about. I remember speaking with a friend at great length who discovered that cortisol can be inherited through the genes, through DNA, the stress hormone.
Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard this.
See where I'm going with this. So black communities have underlying comorbidities, underlying health issues caused by inherited stress, the hypertension, the glycoma.
Stress, yeah.
And that might not show up on a socioeconomic chart, but you still have to analyze that as a consequence of slavery, racism, and inequality, not genes. I feel like I'm arguing with a race scientist, and I'm not. No, I ain't. But
no, bro. I agree. I agree with you on that level, and I understand that 100%. But then I'm finding it hard to reconcile. For example, when I'm doing my job and what I've seen and what and obviously I had to really think what I've read in the books as Western science taught to me. Obviously, that's taught from a certain view. You know what I'm saying? So maybe even what I think is maybe that was all a lie. But then you have to go back to first principles and figure it out for yourself. So, for example, ACE inhibitors. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about ACE and its role in COVID. Right, ACE inhibitors are we use them for blood pressure medicines, and they're good in heart failure.
Right,
but it's well known that, for example, a side effect of ACE inhibitors is angioedema, and it's more common in black people.
Angioedema,
which is like an immune reaction.
Right.
Okay. Because what we're seeing with COVID is there's an element of an immune reaction that happens in some people that kills them essentially. And I just can't help think there's some linked mechanism there between ACE which is angiotensin converting enzyme, you know, and the way that we've already documented, you know, African people react to these drugs in a different way that I find difficult to. I mean, I take your point 100% of our environment shapes us. I said that. That's why I'm not using it as a segue to say, no, this is definitely. I see your point of view, which is if you just say it's genetic, then you don't need to worry about the social cause.
Well, I think that's why they're saying it. Yeah.
I think if we just say it's social, then we will ignore a tiny part of it. I don't know what proportion of it is, but we will ignore a part of it that we can work with, because what we know is that everyone is different. Everyone is different. If I give you a drug and you give me a drug, the way I react to it will be very different from how you react to it. You know what I'm saying? And I want to make sure everything is considered. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, but you're 100% right.
And I think that sounds to me like the best, most scientific, objective approach too. We're still in the stages of studying and trying to understand this disease and its progress, how it works on us. So anyone that's offering simplistic answers, the 5G did it. It was the white man. I'm gonna step a little back from that, you know. Yeah. But there has to be something, you know, and I have heard occasional stories from the field, articles published, which I think reported from a West Midlands hospital that Black and Asian nurses felt that they were pushed to the front line more than their white British colleagues, more senior staff. You see it in every kind of company where you've got people, wealthy managers being able to self-isolate in their gardens and send their hotel staff, their cleaners, their venue owners to go in and still work in dangerous environments.
100%. You're right. You're right about that. You're right about that. But and that's happening.
Yeah.
Well, you know, no question. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind that's happening. That is what's part of the reason. But it follows poverty as well, doesn't it? You know what I mean? So, but then you have to look at the doctors that died, and what was it really interesting? I don't know if you came across that study about they did an analysis of all the doctors that had died from COVID, and obviously BAMI were massively overrepresented. But you know, interestingly, at the time that they did that study, none from ITU, nurses or doctors, had died.
Wow!
And that is classic. That is classically where you think people would get the most exposure, because it's the sickest patients giving off the highest viral load. People have postulated that it's because in ITU, that's where you really take PPE seriously. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. Yeah. But even more, it could be even more that a certain type of population is not, represented in ITU jobs. Do you see what I'm saying? So, nah, man, it's complicated and it's not straightforward. Sure. And there's not one quick, easy answer. And there's loads of contributing factors. And you're 100% right. Institutional racism is a massive, massive killer, massive part of the equation. I'd agree with that 100%.
Yeah. You know, I think we can measure our acceptance of, like, we have to wait for more facts to come out before making sweeping conclusions, with the fact that a lot of this death is obviously avoidable and something very dodgy's gone on. We need to keep people to account. I mean, that brings me to sort of my mood as we're talking, and for the whole day as it's been, just on hearing the news that Ty's finally and sadly passed away after a battle with COVID-19, and it's completely choked me up, knocked me for six today. I think as a lot of people have had a similar reaction. The fact that he extended throughout all the community and was an artist who'd pop up in so many different environments, you know. It was a glue that could link you and me, 1 Second, John Z, and so many other artists around the world. It's a massive loss. And it does, at the same time as the grief, fill me with a sense of the injustice and how cruel it is that he was apparently improving and out of ICU and then got reinfected. How common, from your knowledge, is that? It sounds... Bro,
this is mad because this is a theme that we're hearing a lot with COVID. I remember when it first broke, I read this really interesting Facebook post from like a doctor in America. She was on ITU, and she told the story. And at the time, I thought it was a hoax. I thought this is just to scare us more. And what they were finding with these people who ended up on ITU was that they do get a little bit better, but then all of a sudden something will happen and they'll die. And I was like, and then this doctor wrote, obviously that's like the worst thing for the family because they've been on ITU. Yeah. You see that, you start having that hope and then they just die. But in Ty's case, it was like, because obviously we were all invested in it. We were following it. It's like he came out of hospital and he was, for a while, he was improving. It sounded like it was a slightly different thing. And then he got, like you do if you stay in hospital for long times, you get these things called hospital-acquired infections. And this is what I've just read. I don't know. He got the pneumonia, and then that was too much. But that unfortunately that is a story that I've heard many times in terms of someone gets a bit better, then they deteriorate. It's really like you said, the word cruel. It's cruel and just really horrible to think about.
It makes me think of two things. I mean, the cruelty of it, but I remember Ty personally like interceding when I had this, it could be seen as quite a minor, but an altercation at a pizzeria in London. You probably saw it go a bit viral on Facebook.
I saw that, bro. Yeah.
Ty was all like, "This can't happen to our brother," like all indignant. I was like he was there, like it happened to him, and I just felt the love, the warmth, and the protection, that he didn't have to give. It really meant a lot, and I feel, this is obviously too soon to process it all, but I don't want to be out here clapping my hands on a Thursday and doing empty gestures. How can we feel that either by recording what's happened as artists or doing something with from your insights, how can we make sure that death's not in vain, really? And there's lots of ways, I imagine, but what was it making?
Spreading the truth. Spreading the truth. Voting these people out.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
ultimately voting these people out, make sure everyone knows, we got to be smart about it, right? We got to find a way of hijacking this ludicrous clap for NHS thing and turning that into something meaningful, because at the end of the day, you have to understand how the public consciousness works. And as much as we find the clap for NHS thing now, just really difficult to stomach. Yeah. But there's a reason that's worked and it's permeated and it's struck a chord with people. Yeah. So we need to, I think having conversations like this is part of it, man. Amen. You know what I mean? And having more open and honest conversations, encouraging people to think about it for themselves. Because I think that, and having good communicators, I think that, if you have people who, because that's what essentially my job as a GP is like, there's so much there is trust, but it's also mistrust. It's like people don't take 70% of what doctors prescribe for them. But if you sit down and you talk to someone and you understand what's important for them in their life and you explain in a way that they can understand, then that can change. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
How does that interface, and again, thinking of Ty and his skills as an MC, the things that we would have picked up from him, the charisma, even when we were battling back in the day, that you have as an MC, are those skills transferable skills?
100%. 100%. 100%. And I can say that as a fact, if you go see a doctor and you feel like there's no connection between you and that person, they're not going to do what you say. Right. They're just going to be like, whatever. He didn't even listen to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that charisma is number one. Yeah. So we need charisma. Yeah. We need charismatic people out there giving,
if I can put you on blast a little unfortunately, bit too, as an artist, like, the song you did ages ago as a drunk doctor, like, there's a few, but the insights, the really honest, like, pouring out into the pen, things that artists can do that probably your general managers or people around you or, you know, other practitioners can't get away with, or politicians certainly couldn't get away with, or elected leaders, because as artists we have a sort of license to be honest.
Exactly.
You know, it's something that we should really take advantage of. People are like, I can trust that because, man, he's a flawed human. He's just laying it all out there. And he has a genuine insight into... You have a genuine insight into the medical community and what's happening in the wider community and a heart for it. I mean...
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just like... It's everyone. It's like just on a one-to-one conversation, you know, people who are watching this... If you have a one-to-one open conversation, what I don't think is helpful is like calling people's names and being aggressive and shutting down, you know, people. It's just like giving people that space. We have a concept called motivational interviewing, right? You can't tell someone to do something. The idea needs to come from within themselves.
Sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm having more conversations and you know, and the charisma side of things, I was going to say something. Oh yeah. So, and it was really interesting actually because, my partner, she follows this, she's in a different world from me, right? Sure. Which I love because that again gives me and informs me on what's happening on that side of things. Sure. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So she was watching this guy, Fit Men Cooks, right? Okay. She watches him like every day, right? But anyway, today he took a second out and I saw on his story, he was talking about Ahmed Arbery, who got shot in America. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, my partner, who is not really that involved in that situation, then hears this and then gets given this whole new perspective about, oh, okay, this is why I need to think about this. Even though for her, it's in her life, but it's not until... And it's not until something like that, it's like crosses over like that. Because I'll be like, certain things will pop off in my timeline. And I'll be like, did that come into your timeline at all? She'll be like, nah. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's about this cross-pollination of ideas and not getting trapped in these echo bubbles where everyone's just saying the same thing.
Isn't
you know what I mean?
That killer? Because, like, again, last general election, I was all like, come on, youth. All these clever people on Twitter can't be wrong. Yeah, nah, you kind of socially gardened out the weeds there, and you got the completely distorted impression of what's really going on, and that's something you're right. We need to do. Talk to Auntie, talk to that random at the bus stop when we finally are out of isolation, to spread the word, spread the truth.
Yeah. And we have to be patient as well, man, because things don't happen overnight, man. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But so that's just my prefacing everything with. This is my opinion, that's right? So I am probably very definitely wrong on a lot.
That's what we're here for, man. The flawed human, Chima. But also your honest insights, because you know you are a doctor. It's not like all these people I know you see online. I invented the cure for the toenail fungus in 2007. Just like all these quacks just talking nonsense. There's a level of trustworthiness, authenticity that we crave.
Yeah. It's mad. I'm seeing like people who, fair enough, you've got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. What the fuck does that have to do with?
Right.
What the fuck is going on? Like, I get it. You want to be, you want some profile at the moment because it's like people want to turn to experts. But, no. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sitting here saying I'm an epidemiologist, bro. No way. I'm not saying that. I don't know how to study patterns of disease migration and falling back. I can only tell you what I have seen. You know what I'm saying? And anyway, these epidemiologists, they don't know shit either. You know what I mean? This guy who recently,
Valence,
you know,
or the
had his
he ignored his own advice and went to visit his girlfriend.
Yeah, Ferguson. You know, he's been wrong on like mad cow disease, swine flu.
Oh wow.
H1N1. All of these things that we led in the public consciousness to really panic about. I still worry about, you know, even though I've gone mostly vegetarian, I still worry about mad cow's disease, bro. You know that? That's how powerful that was back then in terms of making us worry about things. You know what I'm saying? So
I think when you see the scale of neglect and deceit, people are right to be mistrustful. It's what we do with that fear. You know what I mean? When you know that there's possibly 50,000 deaths and they're saying there's 30,000, everyone's got this. We're looking for authenticity, as I said. But then going specifically to your craft as MC, It's today, right? You dropped a new joint.
Oh man, you know what?
Adios.
The quarantine killed it. Like I don't know what's happening with the digital distribution stuff, but yeah, I'm supposed to be having a joint coming out today called Adios, you know what I'm saying, which is...
And you gave us like a 2-second snippet, like it was tantalizing. Like I heard a drum kick and a snare come in and... So what's the plan? And that's a wider question. What's the plan with that track in the immediate future? And for you as an artist, considering things are on lockdown, we're on quarantine, we're going to be doing live shows for a minute.
Yeah, so I've done a video for that song, which basically the concept for the video, the song is about saying goodbye to like negative things in your life. Okay. Basically, it's called Adios, and the concept of the video is I'm going on holiday, but obviously I can't go on holiday. It's quarantine, so I bought some green screen. You know
what I'm talking about, bro.
You know what I'm saying? So like it looks absolutely ridiculous, but it's fun.
Wicked.
And it's real. And I'm really happy with it because I had to develop the skill to do that all myself, as I'm sure you have.
Yeah, man.
Like, you know, in terms of like learning all these new skills, which has been cool. But in terms of the artist side of things, you know, I don't have the master plan. I don't know. But, you know, it's great that we can keep putting content out there like this. You know what I'm saying? You know, and it's mad because since the lockdown was the first time I ended up doing a track with like 4 different MCs all across the world.
Right? Yeah. And we just got it together after months of talking about it. Just quick send it. We transferred. Yeah. Enough collabs have been getting done quick.
Yeah. So continuing just, you know, spreading the word. Because, you know, like the kind of music that we both make always has like a message in it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always something there to like dissect and think about. And like, it's clear, like now at this point, it's something that we're always going to do, and no matter what situation we find ourselves in, you know what I mean? Because it's like it's part of our we don't like talking about DNA, do we? So let's say what is it? We were socially conditioned.
You get me? Leave that Richard James Watson talk at the door. But yeah, man. So where can we find this video? Are you still in the process of editing, chopping, and?
I'm editing it. Yeah, today I'm just editing it. It's gonna be on my YouTube, obviously. You know what I'm saying? That's about it, really. Instagram, obviously, you see little snippets. You know, which are edited for social media purposes, where people just, you know, they just scroll through real quick. You don't want anything more than 3 or 4 seconds on social media.
A tantalizing snippet. I'm terrible at that, though. And now people have started to do the whole TV thing. I could get quite indulgent, put a little clip, but anyway, I digress. The social medias, they're both blessing and curse, man. That's the way I feel about it. But keep sharing content and building content, because it's probably the most valuable, powerful weapon we've got at this time, you know. Without a doubt, bro, because it's how people get their information now. And whether we like it or we don't, it's here now. Like, what can you do? Honestly, what can you do? It's here now. Yeah. It's in. I think the only thing I worry about is the effect on our long-term psyches. I'm just flashing back to the fact that you were the guy that got me on Twitter in the first place. Like,
bro.
I was like, Twitter. It's like, Sweato, Eric Roberson has just tweeted you, and I was like, what's tweeting? And some 10 years later, an addict. Unless I've trained myself recently to not engage with it as much, where it becomes this echo chamber and just people.
No, yeah, that's it. Yeah. And you know what? The companies are learning, because the companies didn't know their own power. So as much as we love to hate Zuckerberg and all of them, and that's why I think government needs to get more involved and making sure that, you know, it's not used in a bad way, and educating people about the risks of it. You know what I'm saying? But
I think internet literacy, that's going to be the way, because I don't trust these guys.
Exactly.
With Apple and Google's system for the track and trace app that's just been announced, and the tension between that and the government model, it all seems dodgy. And so we need the tools to, as you said earlier, discern for ourselves. Like, what's the truth? What's a lie? And like, vote these bastards out. You know what I mean? Next time we have the opportunity, don't let this happen again. You know? My brother, thank you so much for your time, man.
Hey, thank you, man. And thank you for robust robust, challenging conversation,
Likewise,
which is what we need. Like,
absolutely.
like you bring your ideas, I bring my ideas. People make up their own ideas, and we move forward. Like, as long as the basis is in like information and you know what I mean, and science to a certain degree, then it's all good, man.
Facts.
You know, and it's great to talk to you again,
You
man.
too,
You
bro.
know what I mean?
This is another thing, like people you don't see for ages. You're like, I can actually just link them digitally at the very least. So, and most people are in the yard. It's strange but blessed time. My brother, peace and love, man.
Love, my G.
All the best. Catch you soon, man.
Catch you in a bit.
Yeah. Woohoo! Yeah. The incredible Chima Anya. I know it was a long interview, but thank you so much for staying tuned in because there's so many nuggets of information. Woo! Hopefully my microphone level is just about right. Please let me know if it ain't. But just some quick comments that have come in on that video. I'm deliberately wearing green because I want to block as little off of Ty's face as possible. But thank you, Yvonne Leslie, for dropping a voice article in there, a voice online article. Obviously, that is a prescient question. Are these infections happening because of the color of our skin, or is it the endemic racism in society? I don't know if we'll have a conclusive answer to that. But thanks to Chima as well for not rushing to obvious conclusions, but keeping that scientific inquiring mind in his responses. Keris, an incredible poet. You should also look her up. Keris Hannah makes this incredible comment about what's happening in South Korea. I had no idea about. I knew there was a re-spike, if you like, in cases. And now this is being used to target gay people in the clubbing district of Itaewon. So you can have a look at that, look that up. But it could quite easily presage the sorts of things that happen in the UK as well. If we have a second spike, a second wave of infections, and the story's already gone out that it's a BAME issue and BAME infections are the thing, then it's not hard to see how we could have targeted attacks in the future. Thank you for asking that question, Mark. So again, on so many people's tongues about 5G, what is the basis, the medical evidence behind the health effects, radiation poisoning, all these sorts of things that are being claimed. And Chima very helpfully chiming back in there that it's not actually backed up by medical literature at the moment. But I guess I wouldn't expect there to be loads of signs about that. I think the 5G panic, for me, as Keris has just commented, strikes me as a massive conspiracy theory, and one that we don't need when the conspiracy fact. If you're curious, just check out the broadcast from last week, but I drove around on my bike the local hospital that was collapsed, underfunded, never finished because Carillion as the company collapsed. So you don't need a conspiracy theory to see evidence of the fact that this government is callous and would rather die than lose a penny from their economy, as they call it. I think that's really what's going on right now, you know? So there's a lot of questions being asked, but I want to move on because we've been chit-chatting for a while and not really playing much music. Before I play this exclusive track that's never been released, only certain people know about this music right here, I want to spend a bit of time talking about all the people that I shout out during the track. So I don't know if I can pause it at the same time, I'm not sure. They're going to fly by really, really quickly. But you've seen Eska Mutangwazi, Rasia Jabari, Francis Mart, Breeze, my brother Breeze, King of Zamunda, Femi Tomoo. These are all my brothers and sisters. I just want to big them up and tell them how much I love them right now. Michael Olatuja, sorry for the sound. Troy Miller, Kim Trusty. These are all people who are incredibly talented and helped me make B19 as an album. Brother John Z D, you've seen him as a previous guest. He's right here in the Facebook group right now. Gary Crosby, the one and only. Snaz D, incredible MC from South Africa. Ben Sharper, rest in peace. Crooked the Warmonger. Pen Talk, all my Pen Talk man them. Short Change, Rex, Casey, Purge. We got Ranks in the background. DJ Winchester. These are just a lot of names to you, but trust me, this is family. Julie Dexter, thank you for tuning in earlier, Julie. It's an honor to have you in watching. You know what I mean? Zena Edwards, the one and only. Jason Yard, probably one of the reasons I picked up saxophone in the way that I did. Big up, Jason. Julian Joseph, my brother, the main man. Steve Williamson, definitely one of the reasons I picked up the saxophone in the way that I did. Right in the background is a group called the Invisible Three, who at the time that I wrote the song were part of Jade Fox. That's Tony Platt. If you don't know about Tony Platt, the producer, you don't know about music, fam. Love these people. Andrew McCormack, who I played in Tomorrow's Warriors with Sean Corby and Esker and all these people with for many years. And of course, Ty, the one and only Ty, man. I can't really put into words how it feels to know that he's gone. But his presence will always be felt. And of course, Courtney Pine. So that explains the shout outs. They're going to fire past at a rapid rate. But I think I should do less talking and more listening. Are you guys in the comments? Are you ready for this new track, people? Are you ready for this? You know what I mean? Carrot seems ready. She's ready for the love. Spread the love. If you know, you know. But not many people know. This tune was recorded in 2005. And the reason I'm going to drop it now is because Ty was very much a guy of like, no long thing, Soweto. Why are you on the long thing? Send me the new music, Soweto. What's wrong with you, Soweto? I've got a radio show. Send me the music. So I still hear his voice just like, especially now, just let go of the music. Stop holding on to it, release it. Let the people hear, man. Hopefully this clarion call to all the people mentioned in the track will just remind us how connected we are. Connected by Ty, connected by Abram, rest in peace, connected by so many artists and friendships that we have to take their legacy forward. Enough talk!
Cast your eyes behind the screen.
Oh, people aren't ready for this tune.
Moment, time to breathe.
I said I was going to let it play to myself, but I can't. This tune, I might even have to just stand up and shack out. I ain't going to do any playing except to shack out to it. It's my favourite track that I think I produced with Esker Mutungwazi on vocals. And yeah, man, done the talk. Rewind and come again.
Cast your eyes behind the screen.
Hey.
Hold a moment, time to breathe.
Yeah! I see you, bro. Get ready for the drop, people.
Set it free, free your hand, free your head, free your hand, free your head, free your hand, What's that busy? You feeling different? Something's lifted off. Come on, swing it, let the spirit loose in the coconut. Move with the bass, hold steady, bring it in. Raise your eyes, come and see the bigger thing. Draw into a new day on the other side when it comes around. This is a message of hope to the traveler when you look around. Well, in the truth, when you find simplicity, synchronicity, look to the future, get on tight, spiritually stand up from where the ground seems slippery. Inhabit the land, be free of tyranny. Keep it protected from front to the side, to the back, to the side, to the head. So open, we go, taking steps in constant motion. Ride the air, zoning, 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 zoning.
Esker, she up in the perimeter. Racia, all up in the perimeter. Francis, all up in the perimeter. My brother Breeze, he up in the perimeter. Femi, he's up in the perimeter. On the two, Joe away with the trivia. Milliman, direct to the listener. Can't trust me, she up in the perimeter. John D, he up in the perimeter. Gary Cross, direct to deliver to ya. The AV, direct to your listener. Pencil, yeah, we up in the perimeter. My brother Rex, he up in the perimeter. Yo, Purge, he up in the perimeter. Winchester, he up in the perimeter. Julie Dex, direct to the listener. See the end, do away with the trivia. Jason Yard, yo, if you're not familiar. James Yard, yo, nobody similar. Julia Joseph, if you're not familiar. Steve Williams, son, yeah, he up in the perimeter. Jay Fox, yeah, they up in the perimeter. Tom P, direct to the listener. Andrew McCool, direct to deliver to ya. Guitar, well up in the perimeter. Courtney Pine, yo, trivia. Joe Records, what? Yo,
Finding wellsprings underground. Seeking hope when I've been found. What's that busy? You're feeling different. Something's lifted off. Come on, swing it. Let the spirit loosen the quickening. Move with the bass. Steady, bring it in. Raise your eyes. Come and see the breakers. They drop into a new day on the other side. When it comes around, this is a message I hope to the traveler. When you look around, well, in the truth, and you find simplicity, synchronicity. Look to the future, get up tight, spiritually. Stay up from west, the clouds and slippery. In having the life, be free of tyranny. Keep it, take to the front, to the side, to the back, to the side, to the front, to the side. Get open, yeah. So open. We go. Taste the sense of motion. Right here.
Yo, we zoning. Yo, we zoning. Zoning. Yeah. I know you feeling that. Thank you so much. Yeah, Francis is absolutely right, man. This comment says it all right here. Been holding out for years for Basement Tables. Part 2, more fire, I don't know. So, yeah, like, if there's a parting gift that I feel that Ty has left me with, an insistence that he left me with is, just like people have said in this group, why am I not releasing these tracks? You know, I had a lot of political reasons why. The track was with a label that I was no longer with. It was all complicated. None of that matters, you know? And I look at the list of people, I get a lump in my throat, all these pictures, you know what I mean? All the people in this group, some of whom were not on the album, and many more extended tendrils of love through our artistic community, and we need to keep doing this. So, practical terms, in 2 weeks' time, I'm gonna drop this tune, make it available online to stream. I ain't got a video, so I might just be on some green screen thing with my family and might have to just holler at Eska to get involved. But time waits for no man. You know, I know Ty is looking down on us, just wanting us to take what he built, what he laid down, the foundations he laid to the next level. And you know, it's facts. There would be no Lady Leisha, there would be no Mist, none of these dope MCs that we love and respect for the traction they're getting, your Stormzy's, your J Hus, all of them built on the foundation that Ty laid. You know what I mean? So let's remember that. Let's keep it moving. One love. Wow, people are just dropping in now. Yes, my family. Cleveland, Inez, Chima, thank you so much for being a part of this broadcast today. Tell a friend. There'll be more new music coming, and ZONIN is getting dropped very, very soon, along with some new things. Thank you much for tuning in, man. God bless you. I'll see you same time next week on Monday. Respect, and respect. Get on.